America just learned something that kept military officials awake for 72 hours straight. Pentagon analysts, watching satellite feeds at 3 a.m., seeing something they couldn't explain. What India hid for decades was just revealed on live television, and it changes everything about how we understand global power. But before we dive in, if you're new here, hit the subscribe button and leave a comment. I subscribe. And I'll personally welcome you into the family. With that said, let's get started. April 2024. Piers Morgan studio in London. Across from him sits S. Jaishankar, India's foreign minister, calm, composed, with that diplomatic smile that makes career politicians nervous. Morgan leans in with his signature aggressive questioning style, asking about India's nuclear capabilities, expecting the usual deflection, the carefully worded non-answers diplomats are trained to give. But Jaishankar does something different. He smiles wider and says, "You're asking the wrong question, Piers." 4.2 million people watched that clip in the first 48 hours. And about half of them rewound it because they couldn't believe what they just heard. What he said next wasn't just confidence, it was a warning wrapped in diplomacy. 3,500 miles away in Virginia, Colonel James Hendricks, a Pentagon analyst for 15 years, was watching that interview at 3 in the morning. He couldn't sleep. Something about the intelligence briefings that week felt off. And when Jaishankar started speaking, Hendricks felt his hands go cold. He picked up his secure line and called his supervisor with words you never want to hear in national security. "Sir, we have a problem." Because here's what Jane's Defense Weekly published just 1 month earlier, March 2024, buried in their technical analysis section where most people don't look. India's weapons-grade plutonium production had increased by 340% since 2018. Not a typo. 340%. And U.S. intelligence agencies, our multi-billion-dollar surveillance apparatus, somehow lost track of India's nuclear program between 2019 and 2023. But let that sink in for a second. We can read license plates from orbit, but we missed an entire country tripling its nuclear weapons capability. So what did we miss? 3 secrets that changed everything. Secret number 1. An underground facility in Visakhapatnam, a coastal city in eastern India. This wasn't discovered by CIA operatives or satellite surveillance. It was found by a Stanford graduate student analyzing commercial satellite imagery for his thesis. 2.7 kilometers deep. Temperature controlled to within 0.5 degrees Celsius. The precision required for that kind of construction? It's the same technology used for the Large Hadron Collider. The Federation of American Scientists updated their assessment in January 2024. India now has 172 nuclear warheads. Their previous estimate? 156. But here's the terrifying part. Those 16 additional warheads were built in 18 months. And nobody noticed until they were already operational. Secret number 2, the INEP missile system. Dr. Melissa Tran, a nuclear physicist from MIT, testified before Congress in February 2024. She's not a political person, pure scientist, spent her career on deterrence theory and missile technology. When Senator Graham asked her to explain India's recent missile test, her voice cracked. She said, and I'm quoting directly from the congressional record, "India developed canister launch technology we thought was 15 years away." She described watching the test footage, a missile launching from a mobile platform in 4.6 seconds. Cold launch. 0 heat signature until it was already 200 meters high. That means no warning. No time for countermeasures. The missile is in the air before thermal satellites even register it's happening. One defense analyst told The Economist, off the record, that this technology fundamentally breaks first strike calculations we've relied on since the Cold War. Secret number 3 is the one that made the U.S. Navy rewrite its entire Indian Ocean doctrine. The Arihant-class submarine. Nuclear-powered, nuclear-armed, carrying K-4 ballistic missiles with a range of 3,500 kilometers. That submarine can sit on the ocean floor 200 meters down, completely silent, and hit targets from Pakistan to western China to the Strait of Hormuz, where 40% of the world's oil passes through every single day. But the real shock wasn't the weapons themselves. It was who helped them build it. Declassified CIA memos from 2022, released just last year under FOIA requests, show that Russia's cooperation with India's nuclear program went far deeper than anyone publicly admitted. We're talking about Viva 1000 reactor designs, modified specifically for weapons-grade material production. Technical schematics. Training programs. Material science that took the Soviets 30 years to develop, handed over in quiet agreements while the West was focused on Ukraine and the Middle East. In 2019, the US tried to do something about it. Ambassador Sarachin, career diplomat, served under 3 administrations, universally respected, stood up at the UN Security Council and proposed restrictions on India's uranium imports. It was a measured approach, not aggressive, designed to slow down the program without creating an international incident. Russia vetoed it in 4 minutes. France abstained. Even the UK was lukewarm. Chen later told a Reuters reporter, in comments that were supposed to be off the record but leaked in 2023, "We realized India wasn't just a regional power anymore. They had leverage we didn't know existed." That's when American strategists felt something they hadn't experienced since the Soviet Union collapsed. They were outmaneuvered. The Stockholm International Peace Research Institute released their 2024 data 3 months ago. India's defense spending increased 47% over 5 years. And 23% of that entire budget, billions of dollars, went directly to the nuclear program. Not the Army, not the Navy, the nuclear triad. But one word that explains everything: China. June 2020. The Galwan Valley in Ladakh, 14,000 feet above sea level where India and China share a disputed border. 20 Indian soldiers were killed in hand-to-hand combat with Chinese troops. No guns. Both sides had agreed not to carry firearms to that section of the border. So they fought with rocks, clubs, wrapped in barbed wire. In sub-freezing temperatures. In the dark. Captain Rajesh Kumar was one of them. His widow spoke to Indian media in February 2024, 4 years after his death. She said something that made the entire country stop. "My husband died with rocks and clubs because our government wouldn't escalate." 3 months later, they moved nuclear missiles to the border. He would have wanted that protection for others. And she was right. The Carnegie Endowment for International Peace published an analysis showing that India repositioned 40% of its nuclear arsenal within 500 kilometers of the Chinese border. Not a gradual buildup, a rapid deployment in under 4 months. China noticed. They responded by deploying DF-26 carrier killer missiles, aimed directly at the Indian Ocean, where the U.S. Navy operates constantly. A U.S. Navy admiral, testifying before the Senate Armed Services Committee in March 2024, said something that got almost no media coverage but terrified everyone in that room. "We're now operating in a 3-way nuclear standoff we didn't prepare for." Not 2-way like the Cold War. 3-way. US, China, India. All with nuclear weapons. All with competing interests. All in the same region. Which brings us back to that interview with Piers Morgan. Morgan asked Jaishankar directly, can India actually defend its nuclear weapons from sabotage, from cyber attacks, from external threats? And Jaishankar leaned forward and said this, verbatim. "The world worked very hard to make sure we didn't have nuclear weapons. We worked harder to get them. And now you ask if we can defend them? Piers, we built them while being sanctioned. What do you think we can do now that we're not?" The studio went quiet for 3 seconds. Morgan, who never runs out of words, had nothing. The clip went viral in 18 hours. 4.2 million views in 48 hours. And the comments section exploded. The top comment, with 127,000 likes, said, "This is what happens when you underestimate 1.4 billion people for 70 years. The U.S. State Department held a press briefing 2 days later, April 16, 2024. The spokesman was asked about Jaishankar's comments. And he did something diplomats are trained never to do. He hesitated. Stammered. Then said, "We're monitoring the situation." That's it. No condemnation. No praise. Just monitoring. Defense analysts called it diplomatic paralysis. Because what could they say? Condemn India and push them closer to Russia? praise them and encourage other countries to go nuclear? An MIT study from later that month found that 67% of Americans didn't even know India had nuclear weapons before this interview went viral. So let's talk about what this actually means for global power. India is the only country in the world with nuclear weapons that never signed the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. They refused in 1968. Every other nuclear power either signed it or inherited weapons before the treaty existed. India just said no, and built the weapons anyway. The Council on Foreign Relations published an analysis in May 2024 with a chilling conclusion. India may have accidentally created a new model, nuclear capability without Western permission structures. This terrifies non-proliferation advocates. Because if other countries see India succeed, economically thriving, militarily powerful, diplomatically respected, all while ignoring the non-proliferation regime, what stops them from trying the same thing? Dr. Ernst Wilhelm, who spent 22 years as an IAEA inspector, retired early in 2024. He's only 56. In his exit interview with Arms Control Today, he said, "I spent my career trying to stop nuclear spread. India proved you can do it transparently, democratically, and nobody can stop you if you have economic leverage." That leverage is real. US-India trade hit $191 billion in 2023. India is America's 9th largest trading partner. Apple assembles iPhones there. Google has its 2nd largest engineering center in Bangalore. American pharmaceutical companies depend on Indian generics. So America faced a choice: punish India and lose a strategic ally against China, or accept a new nuclear power they can't control. They chose acceptance. But that acceptance comes with nightmares that keep strategists awake. Best case scenario: India's nuclear triad balances China, stabilizes Asia, and the US benefits from what military strategists call offshore balancing, letting regional powers check each other while America steps back. Rand Corporation ran simulations in 2024. 73% probability that India's nuclear weapons successfully deter Chinese aggression without ever being used. That's pretty good odds, actually. Worst case scenario? Accidental escalation during a border skirmish. A tactical nuclear weapon used in desperation. Pakistan, which has 170 warheads of its own, joins the conflict because they can't let India use nukes without responding. And suddenly you have a regional nuclear exchange that kills 27 million people in the first week. That's not hypothetical. That's from Princeton University's 2023 model of a South Asian nuclear war. Researchers described fallout patterns reaching Bangladesh, Afghanistan, and Western China within 96 hours. Crop failures across the region. Refugee crises that make Syria look manageable. But there's a third option nobody's discussing publicly, only in classified briefings and academic journals. India becomes the swing state of nuclear geopolitics. They can align with the West, align with Russia, or play both sides, and everyone needs them. India has a permanent UN Security Council aspiration. They have the world's largest population as of 2023. They have the 5th largest economy and growing. A former U.S. National Security Advisor, name withheld, interviewed for Foreign Affairs magazine in 2024, said, "We spent 50 years treating India like a problem. Now they're the solution we can't afford to lose." Which brings us back to why that Piers Morgan interview mattered so much. This wasn't the first time India discussed nuclear weapons. They've had them since 1998. But it was the first time they showed confidence instead of defensiveness. Jaishankar didn't ask for permission, didn't seek validation. He spoke peer-to-peer, not as a regional power hoping for acceptance, but as an equal stating facts. That psychological shift, that tone, shocked Western audiences more than the weapons themselves. A Harvard professor posted a Twitter thread that went viral in April 2024. 890,000 views. He wrote, "I showed this clip to my strategic studies class. For the first time, they understood what multipolarity actually means. Not abstract theory, actual power parity in real time. For anyone worried about American decline, here's a different way to think about it. This isn't about America losing power. It's about recalculating who has it. And some strategists argue this actually makes the world safer. Controversial take, but supported by a 2023 University of Chicago study. More nuclear powers equals more caution equals fewer conventional wars. The data shows a 61% decline in major wars between nuclear-armed states since 1945. Because when both sides can end the world, they tend to talk instead of fight. So here's what just happened in the span of one 13-minute interview. India announced its nuclear power on live television, not to threaten, but to claim a seat at the table. America's shock wasn't about the weapons. We knew they had weapons. The shock was about the confidence. The refusal to apologize. The clear message, we did this without you, and will maintain it without you. Colonel Hendricks, remember him? The analyst who made that 3 a.m. phone call? 3 weeks later, he was reassigned to a new position, head of the Pentagon's India Strategic Desk. A position that didn't exist before April 2024. He told his colleagues, in a quote that leaked to Defense News, "We're not monitoring a threat. We're learning to work with an equal." That sentence rewrites 70 years of American foreign policy in South Asia. So here's my question for you, and I actually want to know what you think. Is the world safer with more nuclear powers if they balance each other out? Or is this the beginning of a nightmare scenario where one miscalculation ends modern civilization? Drop your answer in the comments. I want to see if people think this is strategic genius, or the fuse on a bomb nobody can defuse. And if you want to know which country is actually closest to getting the next nuclear weapon, and why that one terrifies India more than America ever did, tell me in the comments and I'll make that video next. Because what's coming might make this revelation look like the calm before the storm.